There you go. Make sure it's ready. Okay.
All right, sit down. Here we go. Hello, everybody. My name is Sharon. This is Adriana and Noah, my husband Joe. I have Sharonsweb Autism Foundation, but more importantly, Noah and Adriana do have autism and they are non-speaking. There has been a podcast called the Telepathy Tapes Podcast. It's free on Apple, and I'm trying to think of all the podcast things. But anyway, it's free on there. We're mentioned on, or they're mentioned on episode 10. They are telepathic. I'm guessing no one here really knows anything about us. We're used to doing, we came from Indianapolis, but we just moved to Decatur, Illinois, because Dad retired. So now we have a place where we can do the smaller retreats and things like that. So we can help people without a voice or unreliable speech, but more than that, they're telepathic, and we've been doing energy shows since 2020. I'll start out with, this is facilitated communication. If you've looked anything up, people will say, it's, well, not people, it's ASHA, the Association of Speech and Hearing. Yes.
Shut the door.
Okay, yeah, that'd be, I'm good. I got it. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, we're used to outbursts and different things, but different places where we are, you get the people that are skeptical, and it started all with the communication. So we have 3 on the autism spectrum. Our oldest was diagnosed Asperger's syndrome, which they don't call it that anymore, but it's a thing. So of course he was very skeptical with the letter board. Is it really them, or you're just pushing them into, you know, the letters? I'm gonna demonstrate. Can I demonstrate to you? Okay. So I am pushing back. She's a strong girl. Yes. OMG. So silly to think I'm not in here. All right. Okay, so if I pushed you into it, yes, this won't work because she'll just fight me. So I try to give like bad example, but that doesn't work. Yes, LOL. She thought it was funny. But what happened, it was 2016, and I kept hearing about this saved by typing. It was just local to Indianapolis, and people said you need to go. So it looked like people were pushing them into it. We had no idea until she said, this is a queer process. We lived in England from 2008 to 2010. That just meant strange. But the person that was like me, a facilitator, like, what does she mean by this? Because they weren't doing it. But then it was a few months later, so after I got the feel of it, because they're like, oh, you'll just feel. I didn't feel anything, just like here, I don't feel the energy, that I want to know where you touch, where you do all this. Well, Noah started answering questions in my head. They're like, well, it doesn't work that way. Okay, I'm doing it times 2, like, what, 10 hours a day, or, you know, basically 24 hours a day, trying to get this communication. And it was happening, and I'd get the people that would take me to the side. Yes, it's happening to people, but we can't talk about it. Okay, so in the meantime, I'm learning to facilitate for other people, and I got to the point where it was just like, I couldn't explain it. I would just touch, and I could touch anywhere. On my own kids, they're wanting to, which he'll probably be a good demo for this. He always wants to hang on. Yes. Mom needs our support. And if I try to go up here, very cool for visual, but awkward. Yeah. So you'll see he'll always hang on to my hand, where she would actually let me type or let me facilitate a little bit more loosely. But what was it? It was 2019, 2020. I was facilitating for Noah. Typically it feels the same, and he's really heavy. Well, all of a sudden it felt a lot heavier and a lot more awkward, and it was my dad coming in. And because the words were daughter or whatever, we've never been around any of this. We had no idea. I think there were a few people that had like prophetic dreams and things, but I thought that was all families. I didn't know. So we reached out to a medium, and she's like, she saw a video, and then she met him. She's like, he has a gift, and that was your dad, and he is coming through. And it was obvious, because he was actually throwing himself on the floor like he was possessed, because he was. But what do you do with it? An autism mom that they already think, this is crazy. So then comes the energy. We were introduced, or he was introduced in Louisville, Kentucky at the 2020 show. And we've been doing shows ever since. But the books at the show in Indianapolis that we visited before, Noah said, Mom, you're going to be so out of your element. It's like, okay, so we're just stumbling around with masks on because it's the pandemic. And so he's connecting with every healer there. So the lead author in this series, The Ancestors Within, Amy Gillespie Doherty, she invited him to be in a book. It was actually when we were at the Louisville show, I got a text, and she's like, we want Noah to be in a book about ancestors. What does he know about ancestors? And he's just chuckling at me. And that's kind of how the story goes. I'm facilitating. He's in chapter 4, and you're welcome to read it. We do sell the books at $10. I think they're $22 on Amazon, but you can sit. It's a short chapter, but we have it. They have it on Kindle and Audible. So, and Audible just came out this year. It was funny that the books came out, in order, but then the Audibles came out 4, 3, 2, which she's in 2, and then 1. But what happened, I'm like, okay, how's this gonna go? And I'm facilitating, and I'm like reaching across, and these real awkward things. And so it's just this conversation of us together, and he's explaining in simpler terms about the energy. So if you're not energy people per se, I wouldn't start with book 2 because hers is channeled and I didn't understand it. And I had to go through after it was channeled by someone else and then edit it to make sure it made sense. And even the narrator, she had sent me a note. She's like, is this how this is supposed to read? I have no idea, because it was more about her energy is too big to fit in her body. And then now, looking back on it, it's like it makes so much sense, and then so much sense to the autistics of all levels. Like I said, we have an Asperger, and then at some of the shows, we weren't really finding that autism mix. But I'd say the last year, maybe even 2 years, we've been finding more on the higher functioning level that are interested in the metaphysics. And those are the people that really help me understand, because there's just so many different levels of everything. So many different levels of the autism, so many different levels on the metaphysics. And as far as I've been able to tell, they do absolutely everything. They feel, they see, they use all their clairs. And so I'm still using the cliff notes on my letterboard. And a lot of times at these things, where it's the shows that we do all the time, like in Kentucky, Indiana, we have a couple of friends in Minnesota, so it's kind of a big jump on that one. But those are the people that are telepathic with them, and they can tell that whole scenario. Usually, yes?
Can I ask a question? Like I have it
Yes.
I have it up on Audible.
Okay.
Now, would that be worthwhile for me to buy that book?
What do you think? Should she? Yes. And then share with everybody.
I'm
Yes.
not telepathic at
Yes.
all.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
I would say, yeah, if you're going to pick one of them, this is the one, because it's going to break it down the way it broke it down for me. I mean,
Okay.
I was comparing just to the different TV shows that we all thought were sci-fi, and it's like, oh my gosh.
Well, I
that's
have
it.
2 credits.
Yeah.
2 credits.
Oh,
So
perfect.
I think it's a
Yes.
good book to
Yes.
use
That's
that.
the one.
Okay.
That's the
Thank you.
one. Awesome. Very cool. I love that. Yeah, normally I would tell people just feel. So how many people do feel them? You have feelers? Okay. Okay, yeah. Yeah, usually, even the very first show we did, people would come up, well, pandemic, it's only other healers, they're coming up. I was drawn to him. Then 6 months later, I was drawn to her. It's like, wow. We knew she was doing some things energetically in the background, you'll see her, this is one that she does all the time. We haven't pinpointed exactly what it is yet, but even like right now, she's either traveling, and you can probably feel her, she's working. They didn't stop working for a long time, but there was a show, I think it was last February, Cincinnati. It had to be that one, or April. One of them, I was preparing, everyone's like, just feel them, and we had about 10 friends that I knew could feel and connect, and they're like, they're not working. It's like, well, that's weird. Well, it was an autism thing. There was a mom that had 14-year-old twins with autism, and she just lived about 15 minutes away. They'd come by the booth, and I said, well, can you bring them? I said, I can do instant communication. I said, the fact that you're here, you'll be open to this, because I can do it here, but I can also do it with their minds. So if I can't get it, he can do it telepathically. And so the woman walked in, and then all of a sudden everyone understood, oh, you were waiting for them. So I do have a video of that session. I was hacked recently. Yeah, this is terrible. I was hacked on my Sharon Paget Smith personal account, which is attached to the Sharonsweb Autism Foundation Facebook account, but it's still there, so you can get it. Because I think it's important. So it's, as long as it's still there, I'm gonna keep pointing to it. Because it was just these two boys, the first one, rocking back and forth, and those are usually the ones that, yes, I don't have to override any language that would be coming out in a loop, if that makes sense for parents. So that would be that unreliable speech that we talk about. So he used to speak in echolalia, where he would just repeat things after another, where she'll do sing-songy stuff or a word here and there. But once he found out, oh, that's not what I'm trying to say, he stopped using his vocals. And so when vocals come out anymore, it's not really him, and it's a little startling for me, because like when my dad came through, it was just, not that my dad wouldn't have been a good spirit, but he was very bipolar, never diagnosed, so you had those extremes. So you have a spirit coming through a body that was bipolar, coming through a non-speaking autistic body. Yeah, you're gonna get some things that, shouldn't happen. And even more terrifying would be her, because she has less control. So he has more control. So I like having them both as examples. But we do have some other friends similar that do have the vocals, and but they're not exactly what they want to say. And that's been really fun as a part of shared consciousness, which I learned the term. Usually if voices come out, she wants to say something. Oh, let's use this one. Aha. Let me show you this right here. And if it gets boring, just throw me a question and we'll switch gears.
So who is she connected to now?
Herself, I think. Hang on. Yeah, if she's looking at the board.
Aha.
If she's looking at the board, it's her.
How careful you are.
How careful you are. Yeah, which is her, because she knows just all the telepathy tapes that are out. We're getting hit from not the researchers, because the researchers are trying to get the information. It's the scientists that don't believe. And the researcher, it's Dr. Diane Powell, and I don't have it on my website right now, but I need to add her on there. Dr. Diane Powell, I think Hennessy, but she wrote the ESP Enigma, and I want to say that was in the 70s. At least she's been studying for 50 years. So the first time we met her, it was on a Zoom call. She connected with Noah for like an hour, almost hour and a half, and she wasn't done. It's like she was amazed, and they're like, yeah, I don't think they hadn't started the telepathy tapes yet, but they said we need them plus their telepathic connection. Her name is Melissa Jolly Graves. I think she's in all 4 of the books, but she's the one that channeled Adriana. So we knew it was important. With Melissa, it was 25 authors and me on the Zoom call for this book. And Melissa came in, she's like, hi Noah, I'm thinking she has Tourette's because I only know special needs world. And she's like, are you telepathic with anyone other than your mom? Mom's not telepathic. So she came with film equipment, brain scanners, all these things. And it's the same type of thing that Dr. Diane Powell does, and she says her colleagues won't entertain any of that. And it's like, we've got proof. I've got 2 children. I've got, Melissa translating for Noah. Some other new person will be translating. It's like, how can they not believe? Well, that's where we are on the telepathy tapes now. On episode 10, season 1, they mentioned the healers, and that's the first time they say healers. It was, like I said, it was episode 3 or 5 when they talked about this shared consciousness, which when you're like, who's she connecting with? It's like, it's so cool because she was actually with herself. A lot of times, if she types XOXO, if I'm just using quick letterboard, it's like, that's no, and that's what she was doing in the hallway, because she was getting a little loud and words were coming out, and I'm like, oh, don't, and Noah's like, XOXO, she's okay, I'm leading the presentation. So, because it's like, I don't want the vocals to come out and immediately think, oh, autism, because that'll happen, and some of the shows will do if I have it big and prominent, oh, they're an autism group, oh, that's all they know. No, they happen to have autism, and yes, they are, 3 of them, they are our biological children. That's one of the questions that get asked all the time. I was an only, I'm most likely on the spectrum too. It's, the fear, the anxiety, and so I get it. And then but they have so much more to share. And like they say, mom needs the support. So I'm the one using the letterboard. Because other moms will be like, oh yeah, they use that to communicate. Oh no, they're telepathic. And I can say that here, but if we were in an autism convention, which is what we really want to get out there at some point, but they'll shut me down. Yeah, I don't think they're ready yet, but I'm hoping the telepathy tapes will help. But, so we just moved to Decatur, Illinois. We're on a lake. It's more of that resort type house because we wanted to have the friends that can come in on all levels, on the energy level, but especially the non-speakers. And it hasn't been just autism. One of the best examples, it was a boy that was shot at a birthday party when he was 12. And so no movement at all, but he was 12 up until that point. We met him from a friend of a friend because we do all kinds of special needs stuff. And all of a sudden, Adriana started typing, Mama, I'm so glad I'm here. You get to live your life. The mom cried because she had just put him into a nursing home at 18 because she didn't know what to do. She felt terrible, but he wanted her to live her life. So if that was someone that had never spoken, they probably wouldn't believe it. But he called her Mama through her. And just the tone, he knew, she knew it was him, and he smiled, and she had prayed the day before for communication. She didn't know how it was going to happen. We just happened to be there prepping for a wheelchair car wash. And things like that, it's like, oh my gosh, we can help people in the comas, or if they've never spoken. Problem is, if they've never spoken, they won't believe it because they've never heard their voice. And we've had that happen a couple of times. And one of them, it was a friend, her son had died, and that's where all these come in too. Energies that have passed, where she'd never heard his voice, but she knows us, and so she knows him. Plus her father had, that was a good one too. Her father had dementia, and so wasn't speaking the last 10 years of his life. Well, we met her in like 2008, so we were good friends, but it was one of those, Noah starts typing this letter about keep your brothers and sisters close for me, and he went on, and then he said, sign it Daddy Cool, they'll know it's me. I'm like, all right, I'm supposed to send this to my friend Joyce, who's gonna think I'm crazy. She didn't, because he was Daddy Cool. I saw the pictures. He was of course, older black man, had one of the fedora hats and all that. It's like, wow. He will always say, well, because it's him coming through Noah. The neighbor, do you want to share this story, Joe? He never wants to share. And he wonders why I don't have a voice at the end. We had neighbors about the same age as us. The husband, very fit. He had we saw him being wheeled out by the ambulance. And when we heard the ambulance, we thought it would have been more the wife because she had some more issues and things going on. But they're youngish couple. And just staring straight across, aneurysm. And was it the next day or something like that? Dear neighbor, I'm so glad I got to know about your abilities. I didn't know I would need you to communicate with my wife upon my passing. Yeah, and so I showed my husband, I'm like, do I send this? And I sent it, and she wrote back immediately, he just passed. He came out of it, hugged me. The timing was incredible. And so is it their rabbi? Their rabbi said he had a gift. That's the other thing. Christian non-denomination, I had no idea what religions are going to accept this. And, just going around. And so it's like, okay, well, the Jewish seem to be good with it. But in Indianapolis, we were in Fishers, which is closer to Camp Chesterfield. So that's your spiritualists. So I learned a little bit about that because all the mediums connect with Adriana. And so we're finding that at different shows. It's like, okay, who are the people that are telepathic? Those are the people. So coming out to Illinois, we're trying to figure out, okay, where do we fit in? Who can we talk to? But it's not even who I can talk to. It's just who are they going to connect with? And that kind of thing. Because they can do all these things. I can't explain how. They just do. And actually, if there's anyone here, because healing is like the first thing that they're doing. So I know the ones that can feel, if you have something going on, sometimes they let me feel it. The weirdest one was a thumb knuckle. We were up in Minnesota, and he'll usually cue me to do that, but it's like, I felt this thumb knuckle. He was doing like 9 back-to-back healings in an office of one of the other authors. And I'm like, okay, what is this? And she's like, oh, it was a bowling injury. How would I know? Why am I feeling this? Another one was a back, just like that. It's like he's reminding me. Touch back there, and it feels like my back is like breaking in half. It was a vendor's fiance, and it's an older couple, and they're married now. But he types, stand up, you're healed. It's like, great, he sounds like Jesus. I know this is a skeptic. And he stood up, and he was just amazed. First day of a 2-day show, next day, how'd you sleep? Like a baby. And it's like, and he's so quick on these things. He's had people with cancer where their lives have been extended longer. Well, everyone has, you still have your purpose. You're still supposed to go when you're going to go, that kind of thing. And that was part that I learned along the way. The first one was a girl, a mom. Yes. Yeah. Love them. Yeah. It was a woman that worked at the post office, and her daughter had non-speaking autism, and she knew she was going to go. Well, our mail carrier, she said, I think she might be dying this weekend. She's so afraid for her daughter that, no one's going to take her. She lasted a good 1.5 years or something. But she was able to get both the letterboard. She wouldn't take to the letterboard as well as they do, but the telepathy came in, and she knew that she had the understanding. So we talked back and forth for a long time. But yeah, there was a couple others like that. But anything exciting for them to... If anybody feeling any of the tingles or anything, anyone that feels.
I have a question.
Yes.
Are there any, as comfortable as you are to share, are there any other diagnoses on top of the autism?
Not in our case, except for there was what they call it apraxia and dyspraxia, which we never heard that. And it frustrates me to no end because it's like, all right, we have 3. They've been like they've been for a long time. And with the letterboard, that's what it is. I think it's apraxia here. It might be dyspraxia in England, because we were in both places, and neither one of them came up with that. Because they would do things that you knew they knew, that you knew they were in there, and they seemed like they're reading each other's mind, and no one ever, questioned that either. But there's also a book called, what's her book called? Jess's book. You don't know. A Mind Beyond or something like that. And I don't think I have it on my website now, but I'll remember to put it in there because she's in this Zoom group that we do once a month, and that one is on my Sharonsweb.com. It's just a telepathy Zoom, and this is a teacher that wrote a book last year about her student. She had met him when he was like 6, and I think he's in his 30s now, and he taught her telepathy. And it would sound crazy if you weren't already in this world, but it's like, I just wonder how many people in England, or even in the regular schools, connected like that. We did have one bus driver that passed, and he was a former minister. And he would say, oh yeah, Noah talks to me all the time. And I didn't really think about it so much until I've talked to some of the people that they are telepathic with. And one of our friends, I knew she was very sensitive, and she'd actually given us a big donation, I think through her work or something. And they would come in on ceremonies and things, just astro projecting, astro traveling, those kind of things. But she had said the first time she heard Noah telepathically, she heard him and his lips didn't move. And she hadn't told me that until we were and it's like, I had that thought that that's what was happening with people, because some people would swear that she said their name or something, and it's like, well, I didn't hear it. And I'm like, wait, that's how it's coming in. They're hearing it. Oh, because we had another friend, it was his first healing patient. She had a bum knee, older lady, yeah. And her name was Monica, and not at an energy show, just a friend of the same friend of the boy in the wheelchair. It's complicated. It's like they're all circles, and they say it's always different lifetimes. You're surrounded by the same people, but somehow my same people are in these separate circles. But anyway, Monica sat down. Noah put his hand on her knee, and she's like, oh, it feels like an ice pack. He took it off. Now it feels like a heat pack. It's like, well, that's weird. About a year later, she was fine for a while. Then about a year later, she was in this nursing home. She couldn't get out of bed. He came to see her. She was up taking pictures. When we were done, it's like, okay. The next time is like a year after that. She's a designer for special needs clothing, or she's a seamstress. And she was dressed to the nines. She looked beautiful, and it was within a week she died. But the weird thing was, I was at home, Joe was working at home, and I'm like, who was that? He said, what are you talking about? It's like, there was a woman's voice coming through your computer or wherever. It said, may I come in? It's like, that's a weird way to enter a meeting. He's like, no one did that. So the next day, our mutual friend called me in tears. I'm thinking, oh, I heard Monica because she had such a connection. I was able to hear her. And so that's one of those things where I want to ask all these people, that know about frequencies, because it's like, how did she get on a frequency that I could hear her? But my mind's not always rested or idle to get that, but somehow it was so important. And she came in. So then I did tell my other friend Joyce, like weeks later, she's like, why didn't you tell me that? Well, because it would have freaked you out. It's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, it's just really strange. So I'm always learning from these different things. So then you think about the level of frequencies, how people are coming in. Yeah, and it always looks like she's sleeping, but it's like she's usually working when he did that the other day, and that was weird because he's usually focused, and you'll feel him, and he'll go through every person.
And he's been really happy. He's been really smiling.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Oh, and I can tell you who he's smiling at. That's the best part. And you can't deny it because his face is just always, yeah. You'll see a lot of silly videos where I'm in there. It's like, you can't deny it. Yeah, it's like, oh my gosh. Okay, who's he looking at? Determine in the audience who he's looking at before I play this. Who's he looking at, or who feels him? I know it's going to be a lady, because look at him giggling.
I felt like he was looking at me.
And sometimes it'll be like, okay, yeah, okay.
Laugh out loud. Hi, cutie, so sweet.
Oh, so sweet is what it was. Laugh out loud, hi cutie. As he was doing that, it's like, who's he staring at? But yeah, he'll get like 5 of you together. Oh, because it was about a year ago, he was like working on a broken heart, and there were people like, that's me, that's me, that's me. And it's like, yeah. Oh, hip. Yes, he will do hips. And it's funny, I'm surprised I haven't felt it yet, because if it's something that, I mean, it'll feel like a pin pop on me sometimes. But
Well, tell him he can heal my hip if he wants to.
Oh, yeah.
I got a bad hip.
Okay.
I mean, it's hurt
Yeah.
worse here, sitting here,
Okay.
since I've been here.
okay,
Literally.
okay. Well, now that and a lot of times they wait for me to know, because I'm nosy mom. I just like to know what's going on. But usually energy-wise, I mean, they just, before people sit down, even on the first session we ever had, they're like, oh, does he do this? And it's almost like he gets a download. Yes, I do this. But energetically, he can do that. He does hands-on too. So if you're not feeling the tingling yet, are you sending her tingling? You are? Do you feel it? Maybe not yet.
I feel a little bit.
You'll feel shifts. Yeah, and it's like, I don't know how he does it. I'm not making it up. I'm not selling
He won't
anything.
make it worse, will he?
No, he's never made anything worse. The people with cancer, there was one, because, I mean, everybody was healing and all this, and it was another healer. They're like, well, he died. I'm like, well, that's weird. And it's like, no, he was supposed to go. And that was one of them where it's like, no, but he was fine with, he was going, he got to say his goodbyes, everything at the end, who this man was. He was not happy, this man was. But the man, Noah had kept staring at him, and he does that. He'll stare intently, especially at the beginning, if he's working on you. And anyone that's been healed, especially the one man that was a skeptic, who's not a skeptic now. In fact, they sell jewelry, so I've got like moldavite jewelry, things like that, because it was like instant, and they ended up getting married. But he said, yeah, Noah would stare at me, and now I'm just like, yeah, just keep staring at me.
Wow.
So, yeah, and then once he makes those connections, you've got them. That's the thing. And we've had several friends where they've been in, dire situations, where one, it was her son, little boy, he was like three years old, in the hospital. I don't know what it was, but she prayed, and then she also, Noah's help, and because it's like, Noah and God, Noah and Jesus, Noah and Buddha, Noah and everybody, they're all just working together. I don't want to say he's this all-powerful Oz, but somehow he has these connections, and we all have these abilities with the energy, but somehow he knows how to tap in. Anyway, it was one of those, the doctors were waiting, they were going to do this surgery, and then all of a sudden it cleared up. And so she brought her husband and her little boys to one of our sessions, because you just make these connections, and it's just been over and over, all these different things. And I don't always know until after the fact, and then they're like, come up and tell these stories. And so that's what we kind of hope to do, in Illinois while we're here. But
Well, usually when I sit down, I feel real good. But today, in this
because you feel like, because it's working, yeah.
it started really razzing up.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right, and I'm feeling tingling right now.
Yeah, and she's out. So sometimes she's working. He said he was doing it today, but he may be focused. It's like they'll give me those clues. I depend on everybody else to tell me what they're feeling.
Right.
Usually one will feel one over another. Very few really get both of them, but anymore, they've been working more. And especially if she looks like she's falling asleep, she's on another, I guess, deeper inside her body is what the last person were telling me, because I'm thinking they're out of body working sometimes. But, are you working? Huh? Can you feel her? Do you feel him too? You feel them both, don't you? Yeah. Does it just feel like you're being bombarded by, yeah, front row people? Yeah.
Not bombarded.
Okay,
just
so good,
very,
yeah. They always say it's happy energy, and so, I'm always just here, just left flailing, trying to figure out how to explain. But when enough people feel, and then the right words will come out, they'll have me I tell people, I'll just ramble on, and I'll start saying something. It's like, I'm not sure where that came from, and it's somebody sending it to me. And my nerves get a little easier as we go too, because then it's like, all right, you're not going to attack me. We've had some where they're like, well, why do you have to touch them I don't know, but that's just how it was. You know, I'd let go, and I mean, other people other than them, because for several years, we would go to different special needs events or whatever, and I'd find the ones rocking back and forth, because those are the ones that, okay, there's no vocals coming out. If there's vocals, they're gonna type the same thing. It could be lollipop, whatever, but I go here, and they're like, oh, now I can tell my thoughts, or now I can do it. I let go, and then it's back to lollipop, or A, B, C, D. I'll go here, and they're like, hi, my name is Bob, you know, or whatever, you know, nice to meet you. You'll see the tears come down, all these things. I let go, and then it's back, and it's like, why aren't people researching, you know, how to do it? Well, now they are, because Dr. Diane Powell, she posted something last week, I mean, just like 3 days ago. You know, if they're not pointing on their own, which they don't, but there are people that do. So the S2C, the spelling to communicate, they have like the stencil board, and they'll take a pen, which we even tried that too, but I still needed to hold something. I still needed to center them on the board and give them resistance. So there's training to do it without it, but then it's still so labored. And then you wonder, is it what they're trying to say, and then how do you prove it? Because you still need that whole team of people. So it's a lot. Yes.
It's unbelievable.
How draining is it for them to continue to just sit here and heal people?
Well, it's funny because you see Noah smiling. He always just takes it all in. And so even if I'm typing, if like somebody's grandfather or whatever's coming through, he'll pull me in. And it's like he thrives on that energy, where this is what happens with her. She'll fall asleep, or she's off working somewhere else, and it's that fine line, because I don't know by looking, but you'll, like I said, you'll feel whatever. And then we get drained, because sometimes they'll take our energy, and it was funny when he said he got drained, it's like, well, you're not doing anything, you're just the roadie. He's carrying stuff, you know, whatever. But yeah, they thrive
he won't
on
get
it.
up until like noon tomorrow. Cause
Yeah.
He'll be exhausted.
Yes.
Yeah, but even so, there'll be days where he's working energetically, and then one of his friends will let me know, oh my gosh, these, you know, they've been helping with all these things. Well, that's why we don't see him, because he's up in his room doing that, and he'll go to bed at like 3 o'clock. But when he sees the people, it's like, oh, you can actually see him working. I think he's still working on his people, you know, everywhere else too. But they get that energy back, or they'll get the people that are sending love energy back. So, and then for her to be so comfortable, it's like she's feeling your energy too. So that's the plan at the Decatur house, is have people come in, especially where it can be that you work together, you know, and help figure things out. It can be the autism, it could be someone that's never spoken, it could be, you know, someone in a wheelchair that had an accident. So that communication, and that's the easy part. So it would be, isn't it? Oh, yeah, it's easy for me. He's like, it's easy for you. Okay, is it easy for you too? Yeah, I know, it's like, yes.
Okay, so can they auditorily take in what you say?
Oh, they
Can
understand.
hear
They
and-
understand. Yeah,
and
they hear.
understand?
They understand everything, and
Okay.
it's even been other languages.
Okay.
And yeah, I was a flight attendant back in the day. Yeah, so I speak Spanish, and I studied French, and it was Pan Am. So we went to Germany, all these different things. And then we traveled. When we lived in England for 2 years, we went to Portugal and Turkey, and we didn't know at the time. I think we went to Egypt, and people in this community, they're like, oh, that was probably their awakening at that point, because we went to the tombs and different things. So yeah, they understand everything. And every once in a while they'll type in Spanish, because they know that's something that I will be able to read. But yeah, and so they read your minds, and it's incredible.
I guess it is.
Yeah. So I just need to be able to help explain, or to, you know, at least be open to it, which I love about this group, because you all seem to be open to it. When we've done some of the bigger ones, it's Mind, Body, Spirit Celebration. We're going to do Chicago March 1st. Yeah, so I'm preparing for that one. But we did Cincinnati, smaller city, but they had 300 vendors. So that was a lot. So the first time, and people see autism, and then I hadn't used telepathy until just the last couple of shows, because, you know, it's like, that's hard enough to explain, but Chicago, I'm going to talk about all of it just like this and just be open. And, you know, if people start saying, oh, that's not real, whatever, it's like, okay, I'll figure out how to just feel, just tune me out. You know, if you don't like what I'm saying, you know, I'm still learning. So, yeah, me 10 years ago would have never dreamed any of this stuff. This is just crazy that when you live it.
When did you realize that they had a gift?
2020. Yeah, 2020. Because 2016, I mean, you could say 2016, but I didn't know because everyone's like, oh no, it doesn't work that way. And I'm like baffled because it's like, okay, am I just fighting in my own head, you know? And then now, the people on the telepathy tapes. So we have a Zoom call with some of the people on there and some of the people that will be on there where they're like, is that my thought or his thought or a shared thought? And that's where we learn that shared consciousness. Because it's like, okay, so people like me that are facilitators, which is, I think, the oldest form of this, where you had to touch. And so even back then, we're all like, well, can you do it without touch? Can you put a pencil? Can you do this? Well, they've been doing it for, 10, 20 years. And they're like, nope, we've tried all that. And so it's like, I was that parent back then. So now, watching all these other formats, yeah, it's a good idea. And there's still going to be that population that can do it. But with the, what do I call it? The apraxia. You know, it's a mind-body disconnect. You know, and ours was never diagnosed that way. It's like, why weren't they? Because, yeah, that's definitely a thing. But then with this energy that seems to be on a lot of the autism spectrum, it's like, all right, have we misdiagnosed autism this whole time too?
Oh, yes.
Because our older son, yeah,
Yes.
oh yeah, our older son, he's like the biggest skeptic, but then he's very sarcastic too. And so he'll talk about all these shows, these Japanese things. He's like, Mom, didn't you realize that's a form of energy? Or is Pokemon Go and all that? Oh yeah, that's an energy.
Is that one of the reasons why my grandson is so into all of that?
Uh-huh.
I mean,
Yeah.
he made me watch a show on TV last night, and I couldn't get anything from it.
Yep.
But he could understand it completely.
Our
Drove
son's
me crazy.
29. So, you know, and it was funny because he was always he's 6 or he's 30. Well, now he's like 20 or he's 60. And he's like, Grandpa Quinn, going to the store. And he's a big guy. And it's crazy. But he's, you know, first he was very skeptical. And then now he sees, you know, how everyone else sees him. And oh, yep, is it time?
Goodbye.
Oh.
No, not just for this.
Okay, hi or bye?
Bye.
Yeah,
Bye, everybody.
You have 1 minute.